Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start with a story about some crazy misunderstandings and neighbor trouble out in rural California. It's all about how things got super weird and frustrating because of some wild assumptions. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. My neighbors and the petty revenge before we moved. We once had neighbors that from the day we moved in absolutely hated us. We never even met them, but they made our lives hell in every way they could. We'd moved to that area, putting my grad school and our big life plans on hold to look after my mother-in-law who had stage 4 cancer, so it was already a crappy reason to move, and we hated the area. Rural California is very yee-haw in a bad way, if you know what I mean. The neighbors were garbage people and just awful to us. They never did anything illegal per se, but every petty thing you can think of to make our lives crappy, they did. For example, our water hose was on their lawn after I watered my roses by about 2 inches. It was coiled mostly on our side, but I wasn't done watering. I just stepped into the house for a few minutes for a lunch break. While I was inside, they cut the 2 inches off that was on their property and threw it in our yard, but left the rest of the hose that was on our side. Absurdly petty. They'd never even met us or spoken to us. Finally, after about 2 years of this, I was talking with my across-the-street neighbor about it, and she told me they were treating us that way because they thought we were illegals. I'm Native American and my spouse is Hispanic, but they thought we were both Mexican. I asked why they thought we were from Mexico, and she said before we moved in, some of our forwarded mail accidentally ended up in their box and it had your Mexican address on it. New Mexico. We're from New Mexico. This idiot thought we bought a home in an upscale neighborhood in coastal California with cash and we came straight from Mexico to do it, so we must be part of a cartel and here illegally. They had concocted this whole narco scenario because my husband's last name is Lovato. It's not, but a similar old Hispanic last name widely used. We are darker than they deemed appropriate. We bought our house with cash. We'd sold our starter house. We put years of backbreaking work into renovating and made a killing on it. And they didn't know New Mexico is a effing U.S. state? It was all so absurd. Don't worry, the story has a happy ending. When we moved out after my mother-in-law passed, I wrote them a long letter telling them how embarrassingly stupid they are. I'm Native, so I was sure to tell them they were the ones trespassing on my land, gained illegally by their government, and how they were giant a-holes for making what was already a hard time on my husband, who was dealing with the slow death of his mother, a highly respected physician in the area, so yeah, not an illegal cartel member, an even worse time, so I hope they're proud of themselves. Then we stole their cat. About the cat, they neglected him and left him outside, covered in fleas and fending for himself day and night, in the terrible heat of summer without water, and in the freezing cold of winter without shelter. The cat had already moved in with us because we actually cared for it and we took care of his medical needs. In my book, you treat your cat like crap and you didn't microchip him? He's mine. So one good thing came from our time there, and he's napping in the windowsill right now. We named him Flavio after Flavio Mendez Santiago, the famous Mexican cartel drug lord. Naming the cat Flavio is a chef's kiss. Mwah. It's nice when revenge is also the right thing to do. Hope you get better neighbors. And our second story. Parking in front of my house? I have a house with dedicated street parking spots in front of it. I also have a 2-car garage, so I usually park in the garage. I have a new neighbor who lives on the side street with no street parking that has 6 cars. They alternate which car is parked in front of my house between the truck, their SUV, and their squad car. There's no assigned parking, and I generally don't care other than the truck is loud enough that I can hear it in the house, and they use remote start to let it idle for 5 to 10 minutes before they get in usually. This is a lifted full-size V6 truck with a terrible sounding exhaust and the thin blue line stickers, etc. Total Chudmobile. I went to grill something which required me to move my car, so I moved it into the spot in front of my house since it was open. I'm lazy and just haven't folded the grill up, so I left my car parked there for a couple of days. I then ran to the grocery store for about 10 minutes at 9:30 p.m. to grab a few things before they closed. When I got back, they'd moved their lifted truck into the spot in front of my house from the spot across the street. I was shocked at how petty it was, like genuinely impressed, but given that they're a cop, this was less of a surprise, and probably an indication they should not have the job they have if this is how petty they are. But I digress. So I used my doorbell camera to set up a motion zone notification for the parking spot. I got a notification and heard the truck start up and they left. So I moved my car one spot forward to the spot in front of my house. They came back 10 minutes later. I could hear the truck and check the doorbell cam. I've told my partner about this and they think it's hilarious and fully endorse using their car to go places so we can leave mine in the spot in front of the house. Since I work from home, I don't use my car much. It's been there for about 6 days now. Tomorrow we go on a 2-week vacation and I'm just going to leave it parked in the spot. I checked the HOA bylaws. There's no limitation on how long a car can be parked there as long as it's registered for road use. I'm really only doing this because they obviously care enough to come out and move their car minutes after I left. I genuinely don't care, but think it's hilarious they feel entitled to the spot in front of my house when they have 6 cars and bought a house with a 2-car garage, which they only park 1 car in. I'm debating on buying a second car just to leave it in the spot. Something like a key car micro truck? Am I being too petty, or is it a jerk move to leave it there while I'm on vacation? I was thinking about it, but my partner suggested I leave it there while we're on vacation. One of the many reasons we're together, I guess. You should go to the car you leave, start it up, move it forward a few feet, move it back, and get out. If you can watch the house from your doorbell camera, all the better. And our next story. Never mess with the smallest bouncer. I used to be a bouncer at a very busy nightclub. I was the only female because they needed someone that could legally keep an eye on the ladies' room. At the time, I was 5'5", 130 pounds, and I could probably hold my own in any military physical drill if I wanted. Not bragging, I'm a fat old lady now, and I'm jealous of my past self. Some really big musclehead guy came in with a giggling drunk bimbo, and they tried to go into a bathroom stall together. Not just any stall, the only handicapped stall. I got in front of him and stopped him from entering. He asked me what I thought I could do about it. He'd not yet processed the fact that I worked there and was not just some girl upset that he was in the ladies' room. I said it didn't matter what I could do. I just hit my whistle and my boss, George, would arrive in a couple of seconds flat. He finally understood that I was staff and scoffed. Now, because we were so very busy, we had multiple bouncers. Nobody was supposed to handle a customer on their own, so we all had whistles. The big guy starts getting attitude and starts standing so close he's almost touching me, yelling at me, trying to intimidate me. I blew my whistle. I didn't know that my security manager had actually noticed the man come in and was already on his way. At that point, he raised his hand to hit me. That was all I needed. I grew up on a farm and knew how to manhandle angry animals. Edit to add this word, some that were 5 times my size or more, including dogs, hogs, horses, goats, etc. I knew it's all about finding a weak spot and controlling their center of gravity. I ducked, went for a low center of balance, and basically did a lovely WWE spear, taking him back about 5 feet into the wall. I then took a step back and did what I'd learned to do on the farm. I looked him hard in the eyes and growled. Don't judge, it works on farm dogs. And I just did it without thinking. He stayed flat against the wall, then looked toward the exit, maybe hoping to escape. There stood my manager, leaning on the doorframe and smiling. This poor man looked so defeated, knowing all the girls in the bathroom, including the one he was trying to score, and the security manager had just witnessed him get manhandled by a tiny girl. He just looked at my boss and asked, "So you're George?" George nodded without a word and gestured towards the door. The man left the club on his own without raising another moment of fuss. Yeah, never mess with small bouncers. There's a reason they were hired. And our last story. Fire, fines, and fences. My parents battle to reform HOA rules. Not mine, but my parents have lived in an HOA since the 80s in Southern California. For the longest time, the HOA required all fences to be wooden on the front and insisted that you use fire-resistant wooden shingles for the roof. The problem is fire-resistant wood shingles are not fire-resistant in the way that they should be, and being in a very dry desert-like atmosphere, they can go up quickly if hit with burning embers from a nearby fire, then burn with increased temperature and burn the house down. Back in the 90s, my dad had a huge fight with the HOA about the use of wooden shingles for the roof. Being a scientist, he'd looked into extensive research on it and formed the HOA to remove that by law so people can install ceramic roof tiles. HOA fought back, and that was the end of it. By 2003, the Cedar Creek fire came roaring through our neighborhood, and unsurprisingly, a lot of homes burned down. More specifically, the homes with wooden shingles burned down. All other houses that resisted the call for wooden shingles and somehow got ceramic tiles instead, their houses survived. My parents were lucky in that they had a neighbor that snuck back in after evacuations were issued. They hosed down the roof while it was on fire, broke through the wooden fence to prevent it from spreading, etc. After the fire passed, my parents began the process of fixing the house, including the fence, the garage, and the roof. Within the next day, while they're getting their roof replaced with ceramic shingles, the HOA issues them a fine. In a fit of anger, my dad tore up the fine, proceeded to call up my older brother, he's a lawyer, and had the entire neighborhood sign a petition to remove the bylaws for requiring wooden fencing and wooden shingles. HOA fires back with a lien on my parents' house. My dad and brother scheme and send off a lawsuit against the HOA. Upon realizing they have no leg to stand on, they removed the lien, but my dad wasn't done. He got voted in to become the new VP. He changed the rules completely and basically hobbled the HOA. But growing up around a HOA sucked. They fight you on everything. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.